Welcome back to the Wise Up podcast, where we interview open water members to get your weekly dose of business wisdom. My name is Christopher Albrecht. I am your host, and I am super excited today to have as my guest Picabo Street. She is not only an Olympic and world champion skier. You probably, with the Olympics coming up, you've certainly heard the name before. You remember, and she's also the founder of the Picabo Street Academy, which we're going to delve into today, and a mother of three. So, Picabo, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about raising elite athletes. And this is something that you are not only familiar with, having been one yourself, right? And you are a mother, and you are running an academy that's specifically tailored towards elite athletes. We're going to get into Picabo Street Academy in just a little bit, but I want to ask you just sort of a bigger question, which is an elite athlete born or made? And by that, I mean, like, at what age would a parent know, like, ooh, my kid is special?
Oof, good question. So I think there's a certain amount of talent that has to be on board initially for an athlete to have a chance of reaching the elite level. Um, but I think that hard work and perseverance um, and resources can also really stack the odds in your favor as well. So it's kind of a combination for sure. Honestly, I think if I were to put my finger on one thing that's kind of telltale is how bad does your child want it and how hard are they willing to work for it? And that you can kind of see pretty early on.
So that's actually interesting, because I read the book Range by David Epstein, right, where he argued that kids should play a lot of different sports instead of focusing on one. So I want to get to your point here where you're talking about sort of like if they want it and they're kind of focused on it. But do you have a take on that idea of sort of, many sports versus one at a younger age?
Absolutely. I have a big opinion on it, actually. And not to start on the negative side of it, but just to kind of point out the the process that kids are going through these days that I disagree with. And that is that so many of them are not participating in a bunch of different sports. So many of them are not participating in PE class because they already get the little piece of paper from their coach that says, oh, they get enough PE time within the sport. What people are missing is the self-awareness that you gain when you do a bunch of different sports. You learn how your body works. You learn how your mind and body connection is. You learn how much power you have, how much endurance you have. You learn so much more about yourself if you do a bunch of different things. And you learn how to control yourself in a lot of different environments. And all of that is going to benefit your athletics, not take away from them. So when you're young, you're supposed to be trying different things and figuring out A, what you like, B, what you're good at, and C, what you're willing to put in the time and effort at to be successful, because that's really the deal breaker. That's the make or breaker point, is how hard are you willing to work for it? How many extra hours a day are you willing to put in to really get where you want to go, and be able to trust that you have put that time in once you get there so that you can perform. So I think once you get to like high school level, now you can start really specializing in a sport and maybe picking one only that you do. If you can keep two in there and have one that is a little bit different, but has some of the same functions, and a lot of what you do in it is going to benefit, your main sport. I think it's really important to keep the diversity up as long as you can. And then once you do choose to focus, you do focus in on that and go all in and start making a lot of your decisions around that sport and the preparation for it, and not doing something that's going to take away from your mind body connection in that sport because it's so different, if that makes sense. So as long as you can, yeah, play and have fun and be young and enjoy it, and specialize as late as possible, because you never get a chance to go back and be a kid again. You don't get a chance to go back and play and have fun and remember the joy of it all once you start specializing and really training hard for one sport specifically. Now you have a position that you play and you want to play it more than anything else. And just takes a lot of options off the table, and you grow up real fast.
So when you think back to when you were a kid and how you were parented, right? And you obviously became an elite athlete, rising to the top of your field, right? What do you draw from sort of what your parents did? And then on the other end, like as you look at and you're a parent, right? Like how are you adjusting and how you raise your kids, whether or not you want them to be elite athletes, or I guess it's even more complicated because you were, right? So I guess I'm just curious, as you look at both ends of that spectrum, what have you learned from that? Or what are some of your takeaways from your experience?
So, me personally, like in my experience, it was financially challenging for us to do my sport, and we didn't have extra finances. So, my work ethic was really high. I was really driven to do everything I could do to make the best of the opportunities I had, because I was really blessed to have them, and I could have very easily not had them. Doesn't mean that I didn't deviate. When I was 17 years old, I got kicked off the US ski team because I showed up out of shape with a bad attitude to training camp. And it was very obvious that I needed an attitude adjustment. And I got kicked off the team. I went to a quasi boot camp that my dad put me through. But at the beginning of the boot camp, the one thing my dad did was ask me, like, is this what you want to do? Is this where you want to go? Do you really want to put the time in to make this happen? And if you do, I'm with you and I support you, and let's go. Let's make it happen. If not, I don't want to like kick the can down the road. I don't want to just be, putting in a bunch of time to no to with a means to no end. And I also don't want to be pushing harder than you want to be pushing. So we really had to have a really valuable sit down and come together and go, okay, how bad do we all want this? And how bad are we willing to work for it? And how hard are we willing to work for it? And I wanted it. I didn't want the door to the Olympics to be closed in my face. And the door to the Olympics was through the US ski team. And so I wanted back on the team. So I rolled up my sleeves and I did my schoolwork and I didn't visit my friends and I ate really well and I trained until I puked and had shin splints. And, it was more about the attitude adjustment than it was the actual physical training. And when I got back to camp, I proved myself physically. I definitely proved myself mentally, and that I had had an attitude adjustment. And then it was off and running from there to follow the rules and do the work and, embrace the opportunity fully and go for it. So just because you might have a hiccup here or there, or, try out maybe I don't want to do this waters, doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity still to succeed. In fact, you may even have more, because now you have a perspective of what deviating from it looks like, and that wasn't really an option. It wasn't a choice you liked, and so now you can, move all in on it and go for it and full commit and do what you have to do. And so I think having those real conversations and having them often to make sure that you and your child are still on the same page. You and your child and their coach are still on the same page. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows what the commitment is. And whenever that changes or adjusts, or you do just regular check ins to make sure you're all still on the same page. And you can even break it down further and talk about, like, you can tell your parents as a child, what do you need from them? And if you don't know, you say, I don't know. And then when you do figure it out, you throw them a bone and you're like, this is what I need. Don't ask me this. Do ask me that. I want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about that. Do you need mental help? Do you need a sports psych person to help work through stuff? And with that sports psych person, are you working on being encouraged to keep doing what you're doing, or do you need to learn skills and run through drills and figure out how to manage yourself emotionally and mentally? And just be real honest. You have to constantly be molding it around and working it around, and make sure that you're still on the trajectory to the goal that you have set. And then once those goals are either reached or not reached, that's when you really have another sit down and regroup, change your approach. So, it's like steering a boat and sailing. You're constantly adjusting the bow of the boat to go where you want to go, and circumstances around you, wind, water, you know, whatever, you're adjusting along the way. And that's really important. And that's why it's really important to build a good team around you, and why your parents make that best team, because they know you the best. They spend the most time with you. but the communication has to be honest. It has to be transparent and um, safe.
Okay, I want to transition now into Picabo Street Academy. And so how does this tell us what it is, what the Picabo Street Academy is and what you're trying to
Okay.
do with it.
So we are an academic solution. So what we do is we offer a very individualized and personalized program to help athletes manage their time efficiently so that they can both progress in athletics and in academics without either one of them being compromised. Oftentimes, what that means is you flip the timeline. So we're open year round and we have open enrollment, and you have a lot of extra time to get your schoolwork done, and you can do it at your own pace. So if you are, let's say, an alpine skier, the best time to train in the winter is first thing in the morning on fresh, hard snow, where you get the best training. So in the wintertime, they don't come to school in the morning. They come to school in the afternoon or the evening because their training and their competition schedule comes first and school comes second. But we only come second in time, not in rigor. So we're highly college preparatory. We have a mastery learning system to where you never just band-aid a class and make it through with some zeros under your belt. No, you finish all your assignments. You have to be 75% or higher in any 2 quizzes in order to move on to the test in your courses. But the cool part about that is once you've hit that mark, you take that test, you move on. You're not waiting for anybody in the class to move on with because it's a virtual delivery, but most of the kids do the majority of their work on campus in Park City, where the actual Picabo Street Academy campus is. And so we noticed that a lot of the athletes come in, they're an anomaly. They've been ostracized in their school system. They have been made to believe that they're either told themselves or somebody else told them that they're not smart. And we turn that all on its head very, very quickly. Put the student athlete in the driver's seat and get mom and dad out of the helicopter and relieve them from that role. And we're grades 6 through 12. So obviously the 6th and 7th graders, even some of the 8th graders, still need a little bit of support in kind of staying focused and driving hard through their school. But one of the things that our curriculum really demands is a kind of a type A personality, student athlete who wants to come in the door and they really want to get their schoolwork done. They want to get it done in an efficient manner. And then they want to get back out the door so they can get back to doing their sport. And they're willing to fast track when they can and then put their schoolwork aside. One of the most beautiful things about our academy is when you walk away and it's time to be done with schoolwork for the day or for the week or even sometimes for the month, you put it away and you don't have to stress out about your teacher's hounding you for your assignments. You don't have to stress out about whether or not you're getting it done. You have plenty of time on the back end. And if you've done it right with your time management, you're actually ahead of schedule and ahead of the game and have a lot of your assignments done to where you can go a couple of months without doing any schoolwork and you still don't see any of those flashing reds on your dashboard. You're still green because you have so many of your assignments done. And we've got 3 or 4 teachers there to help you work individually with your stuff, particularly a hefty math tutor, because that seems to kind of be a lot of the students' real, issue where they need the most help. And really let them move at their own pace and fast track through it. And we have a lot of athletes graduating and going on to big colleges. And by the time they get there, they really honestly have been doing high school in a college type manner anyhow, meeting their deadlines and having the freedom to come in way early ahead of their deadlines. So it's a really unique model, but lots of people are starting to catch on. And there's a lot of families doing the same kind of thing, piecemealing a little bit together with online and with a homeschool curriculum and things like that. So the thing that's cool for me about it is it just adds so many options to really individualize and personalize it and get great grades. Like we're noticing that the kids are really super smart when they're given the opportunity and the freedom to realize that. And then their academics and their athletics start to just really improve simultaneously. And pretty soon their confidence is through the roof and they're kind of owning a seat in the school. And that's the spot where they sit in. And then the other great thing is there's a lot of diversity on campus. And so there's some sports that, like 3-day eventing, gymnastics, figure skating, soccer, tennis, skiing, slope style, half pipe, big air, big mountain, lots of different athletes from lots of different sports. And they're all getting to know one another, and they're following each other in their different sports on social media. And they've got an enriched kind of cultural world happening because there are so many different athletes in different sports. So it's a really cool environment.
That sounds awesome. So I'm wondering, seems like a great solution for a student, right? Because of the demands of travel or tournaments or competitions or whatever, plus practice, plus everything. But I'm wondering, have you thought about like a track for parents? How do you look at parents in sort of the coaching process for elite athletes?
It is potentially the most challenging role. Like, honestly, when it comes to school, everyone's gone to school. Everyone's done schooling. Therefore, they think that they know how it should be done. They have a massive opinion about how it should be done. So, coachability is extremely important when it comes to parents in this whole process, right? There's stuff changing all of the time. The kids have their own ideas of how they want to do it, and it's really hard to let go and let them do it without micromanaging the ship. So, taking your hands off the wheel is threatening and challenging as a parent, but it's absolutely necessary. And the way that you set yourself up to do that is just knowledge. So you got to just spend your time being educated yourself on what your choices are, and when you can be, right in there and in the mix and stirring it up, and when you need to kind of step back and let some things evolve on their own. It's one of the more challenging things that we deal with as a academic solution, is talking mom and dad out of the helicopter and off into the role of mom and dad, and letting the student athlete step into the helicopter and learn how to fly and manage it, and have mom and dad not stress and worry and micromanage so much. So we create a system where there's communication going with the parents behind the scenes to encourage them to help and coach and support in one way, and then a different kind of conversation happening with the students as they take over the role of managing their own future, because ultimately they're the ones going to benefit from it, not the parents. So coachability is extremely important, and a difficult challenge for sure in academics and in athletics for parents. And everybody thinks they know best. And if a child doesn't enthusiastically agree on doing something, the chances of them like going all in on it and really investing completely in it are minuscule and getting even smaller. They have to believe that they can discern their own choices and be right about it, because they have more opportunities in their everyday life to do just that. Therefore, they have a confidence on board to be able to make those decisions. And what was known to be nutritionally beneficial to an athlete 20 years ago has kind of been swapped around and definitely isn't the norm anymore. So you've got to be willing to say, okay, this worked for me and this was what we knew then, but now we know this now, and this is what may work better for my child. And then ultimately they're the ones who decide, are you eating a lot of meat? Is that where you want your protein to come from? Is it a combination of a plant protein diet, or do you want to go all the way protein and that works for you? It, like, be open and be ready for lots of adjustments, but make a plan and stick to the plan, see the plan through to a certain time frame, and then regroup and decide whether or not that plan's actually working. Then make those adjustments, and only make one adjustment at a time. If you adjust too many things at a time, you never know what the adjustment that made the difference is, because you changed 4 different kinds of foods, and you added 2 training things, and you added a stretching routine, and now it's like, well, which one is leading to this success or to fatigue and no forward progress. So it's it's challenging. I think journaling is extremely important. Both parents should be journaling behind the scenes, and athletes should be journaling and writing everything down, from what you listen to, how much sleep you get, the food you're eating, who your coaches are, the relationships that you have with your coaches, who your teammates are, How much time are you spending with them? Which ones give you energy? Which ones take energy away? Are you a good competitor when you're angry, or do you need to be kind and sweet and only angry when you're competing, or does anger never work? Like you've really got to try and package it all in a way that you figure out what your recipe for success is, and then you take that recipe, you morph it around for the different environments that you're competing in, and try and produce the max performance. And coachability is absolutely essential all the way along the way. You got to be ready to make adjustments. You got to be able to learn and grow, and you've got to be able to discern what works for you and what doesn't.
So I'm wondering if you know, or if you have an idea of, is it easier to parent a child in a different sport than what you played, or the same one you did? So I'll ask you, did you teach your kids to ski, or did you hand that off to somebody else? Because you might be like, no, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, I just think, I just am curious if you've seen sort of in your dealing with elite athletes, if the parent grew up mountain biking or whatever, skiing or whatever, like that makes them a little worse at it, or I don't know. What's your thought on that?
So obviously my thought is it can go either way, right? So just because you were an athlete in that doesn't mean that you're going to be a good coach. But it also could mean that you're a fantastic coach and you're one of the most valuable assets your child has in that zone. That just depends on what kind of relationship you have and whether or not that can stay healthy enough to keep the progress moving. I find it to be a very slippery slope. No pun intended. I
Mhm.
did teach my kids how to ski, but I passed it off a lot to a lot of different uh, parents who wanted to take like whole groups of people skiing. So sometimes I'd take the whole group skiing. Sometimes somebody else would take the whole group skiing, and let them ski with different people. Let them ski with different groups, and really let them monkey see, monkey do. Kids learn from other kids way better than they learn from any adults usually. And so I was all about putting them into groups and letting them go ski and play and have fun on their own. I had no expectations from them whatsoever to follow in my footsteps. It was an option if they wanted it. It was not something that they needed to do if they didn't. My oldest was like, "Are you kidding me? I would never follow in your footsteps. That's like crazy." My middle son is kind of just likes to ski for fun, and it's more social for him. My youngest is the most mini me of the bunch, but he tried racing a little bit, didn't like it. He loves to ski and he loves to hike and he loves to take big jumps and he likes the park. And so, he doesn't have a future competing in skiing, but it is definitely something that'll be a part of his life forever. My oldest boy didn't choose athletics as his kind of primary focus. My middle son is still trying to play lacrosse and having to try it for the high school team, and he's had a big growth spurt. So I'm hoping that that works out for him. But my youngest is pretty legitimately committed to lacrosse and has some pretty big and high expectations and aspirations in lacrosse. And so I find it way easier to be encouraging him through a sport that I knew absolutely nothing about and am still 5 years later learning the nuances of and getting to know even some of the rules of play because they change based on their age progression, what they're allowed to do and what the rotations on the field are and stuff. So it's made it easier for me as a parent to kind of defer to the coaches for what is the best mode of operation when it comes to him and guiding him through it and being able to sit on the sidelines and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to follow the code of conduct and be the parent that goes, great game, honey. It was so fun to watch you play, and leave the coaching to the coaches because what do I know anyway? And, it's granted, I was a great athlete. It's so long ago, and my children have never seen that part of me.
Yeah.
Even if they watch videos and they watch interviews and they see me race, it's not palpable for them. I'm just mom in the kitchen that makes sure they have their water bottle and their jersey when we drive out the door. Like, you know what I mean? So I really put it on the coaches a lot to really know that they have my trust and that I'm there to support and there to help, but I trust them emphatically and I'm going to rely on them immensely to make sure my my kid gets what they need. But they know that I care more about the person my child develops into be than whether or not they're the greatest athlete in the world, because 2/3 of their life they have left to live when they get done being an athlete. And if you've just lived in this bubble and become this, prima donna, if you will, life's going to hit you right between the eyes when you get out of that sport, and the real world is upon you. So, I pick programs and coaches that are going to develop my child as a whole human being.
So that's an interesting, I want to lead as we sort of wind down our chat here today, which is how much recruiting are you doing at Picabo Street Academy, right? So like if I'm a parent and I'm thinking I have an elite athlete, right? But I may not have a good measure. Is it like anybody could apply to become a member, or is it like a combination of, yeah, your kid's not quite an elite enough athlete for this program, or like, are you identifying people and saying, hey, yes, you should do this? I'm just trying to figure out, like, if I'm a parent, what's the process?
So, the majority of the students that we have at the academy have sought us out because they have gotten to a place in their athletics where time management has become enough of an issue that they need to think outside the box and do something differently. That's generally the family that comes to us and says, "Hey, we'd like to check out your program and see if it's a fit." Um, we've made everyone, particularly in the area, aware of how we operate and what we offer, and therefore, there's a little solicitation going on, but it's more just education and knowledge of how our program is run and what we have to offer. We find that there tends to be more success in our program if a family has sought us out and we're able to fulfill a need that they have, particularly in the time management slot. There's a lot of families that really they take education seriously. Schooling is important to them, and making sure that they don't take any shortcuts and they don't, cut their nose off to spite their face, if you will, by sacrificing education for athletics. And that's the demographic we see come in the door, the type A personality student who's willing to work hard and do well at school and really grind and get it, and then also work hard at their athletics and go hard at that as well. And they've really got to have a lot of self push. That there's the students that come in the door that need a lot of hand holding and a lot of encouragement oftentimes don't make it all the way through the program, so that attrition rate is kind of happens on its own. So the main thing that we do right out the gate is start working intimately with the family to make sure that we're the right fit. And there's a couple of kind of sorters that the kids will take. There's meetings that we have with the students and their families, and then we separate them out and talk to the student on their own and talk to the parents on their own and figure out if everybody's on the same page, and just kind of this process of what's how successful do we think this program could be for this family, and whether or not we're a good fit. And at that point we then put a program in place. And one of the things we do when we take on a student is look at how much longer they have left in their high schooling and make sure we have enough funds in the tank to help if the family needs help to get them through and keep them in the program all the way through graduation, because the longer they're in the program, the better their chances are of succeeding, and the better they're going to utilize our program to their advantage and be successful.
What's another thing people might not recognize or immediately know about as a good tip for raising an elite athlete?
Well, so there's lots of little tips in the different sports that the parents may not know about, and that's for you to research on the back end, to follow some social media handles. There are so many resources out there to help parents help their kids and themselves in the process through. I think one of the things that parents may not know about is there's a lot of recruiting programs out there that have a lot of resources that are available to the parents and the athletes at a really young age to kind of help bottleneck and channel them into the direction that they want to go, so that they have the reassurance that they're making the right decisions at the time that they're making them, in the timelines and milestones that they're reaching together, so that they can kind of get some trajectory. One of the other things that's available is there's a lot of data. There's a lot of sensor data out there of how hard are your muscles firing, whether or not they're firing equally, whether or not you're, on track with the rest of the kids in the country. There's a lot of sensory data as far as body mechanics go, and also as far as like oxygen saturation and technology to help with increasing recovery time, ozone therapy, which helps with creating a healing response, almost like a chemical peel for the inside of your body to make your lungs work well, to make your brain function well. There's a lot of wellness that isn't just your traditional Western med wellness that is available, and kids are they're pretty into it. They kind of like the idea of thinking outside the box, and the more you can get them to do that and to go get a massage and go get acupuncture and go to the chiropractor and get adjustments and have ozone therapy and work with a bunch of different people to really become their own best advocate, and have the body awareness and the mind body connection and awareness to be able to ensure that they're staying stable and they're familiar with where they are at every step of the journey. And self-awareness is how you do that. It's like Patrick Mahomes playing with an ankle that most people wouldn't play with. Well, how did he know he wasn't going to hurt his ankle further? Well, it's educating yourself on what a ligament is capable of, what a tendon is capable of, and having your child have that body awareness. So think outside the box. Look at all the different options that are out there to help make sure that you're doing everything you can do. And it doesn't take more than a time or two to go try something out before you know whether it'll work or not. And sports psychology is, in my opinion, pretty much mandatory. Even if it's just somebody that you go talk to make sure that your program is working the way that it should, and the way that you're approaching it is accurate. Just a confirmation, if you will, as opposed to helping you like kind of get a blank piece of paper out and start from scratch on it. It's the mental game is where the winning and losing happens.
All right. Picabo Street is not only an Olympic and world champion athlete and the founder of the Picabo Street Academy. She is also an open water member and a delightful interview. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Good luck, everybody.